Re-releasing a video game, taking an old game, buffing out some of the edges, some of the scratches, and then trying to pretty much make it sound like it's new, or it's like it's new content, new stuff, or new platform for some games. But people generally associate a newer version of a game as it has to be the definitive version of it, which is also an interesting case considering we have many cases where sometimes that's not even the case or the re-release isn't even talked about much. Let me explain. With the increase of technology and performance, everything, generally people believe that a game that came before it can be enhanced or made better, but it's also games that generally don't really get better as they get re-released. Let's say, for example, another big one that you talk about is Sonic Adventure 1 and 2, where those games came out on the Dreamcast, everything, and then they came out on the GameCube. Now, Sonic Adventure 2 Battle, which is the GameCube version, is the one that people generally talk about a lot and everything, but just the fact that it also introduced more issues, like audio balancing issues for the game.
Radar, report cargo status of captured Hedgehog aboard. Over.
That's a 10-4. Cargo secured on board and... What?
Didn't
The
copy that.
Hedgehog is
Over.
gone. He's taken out everyone aboard and...
What's wrong?
What in the
Come
world?
in. Over.
Freeze! What do you think you're doing? Get that Hedgehog!
Talk about low-budget flights, no food or movies. I'm out of here. I like running better.
And stuff like that generally annoys people, although it does add quality of life stuff, like you have a way better radar compared to Dreamcast version for Knuckles and Rouge stages, but it's just the fact that it chooses more areas that people don't like, or some of the cutscenes just don't look right, like some of the effects just look bad.
Now, Shadow! Chaos Control!
So it's like stuff like that, like there are people who argue they prefer the original. So Sonic Adventure 1, where the change to how the characters look in their models, generally people do not like how they look and prefer the original Dreamcast aesthetic. So there's that fact where people will argue back and forth on the better version, although the more widely available version is re-release, is Sonic Adventure 1 Director's Cut, and Sonic Adventure 2 Battle. But people will make mods to bring back some of the aesthetics or stuff from the original, although I'm not sure you can do that for Sonic Adventure 2 Battle, but stuff like that. You have The World Ends With You, it came on the DS, with such a unique gameplay style controlling two characters at once, one on the top screen and one on the bottom screen, and you have to pay attention to both sides. Granted, you could make the top screen person be automatic if you so choose, but when I've seen most people prefer the experience of controlling both characters by themselves, trying to create this one entire synergy. It's a very cool and unique gameplay style, which couldn't really be replicated on other systems, such as The World With You Solo Remix, where on the iOS version, instead you only play as one character, Neku, with the partner character essentially being basically being another pin for Neku to use. Like, they're not actual character on the screen, they don't take damage, you basically just control them as if they were another weapon in your arsenal, which many people don't like because it removes the whole entire freaking combination dual management aspect of the game. Then you have Final Remix, which came on Nintendo Switch, which is based off a Solo Remix, so that character once again is just a resource. But you can also play that game co-op, whether it be by yourself with a friend. But once again, that's the thing. Now, the AI companion is not controlled by another player, or yourself if you're doing both, but that person still can't take damage. They are still an immortal being who can effectively help you basically make fights a lot easier because nothing can touch them, as opposed to the original, where both characters shared a life bar, with a life bar that went across both sides of the screen. But now, this version, you can't do that, and many people who prefer the original version because of the unique gameplay style. Even though Final Remix does come with stuff such as more story content, not found in the original. Just like Solo Remix also had its own little teaser thing, not in the original game. But because it erases what the unique gameplay style was, people feel the original is the best version to play for the ones with you. You also have remakes that also just change a lot about the game. Resident Evil 2 OG to Resident Evil 2 Remake. It changed a lot. Pretty much it's an entirely different game from the original, and there are people who feel like that remake version makes the original obsolete. No, it does not. That's not how art works. They both have their own qualities and merits, but there are people who prefer the original and would say that the original is better than the remake, or people prefer the remakes, the original is better. But once again, you can make that argument. But for the purpose of what's all about this video, a lot of people played the remake and prefer the remake, especially it's in the same style as more recent Resident Evil games, as opposed to first camera angle style that the Resident Evil games generally don't really do anymore. Then you have the re-releases that people generally don't talk about, especially talk about a very famous game. Like people talk about Super Mario World on the Super Nintendo and everything. Really good game, really great game. I love that game. But how many people talk about the Game Boy Advance version of it? And the answer is less, probably because screen crunch. But that's less talked about game. Legend of Ocarina of Time. Generally people cite as the best game ever made. I would cite that, but that's my opinion. And less people will talk about the 3DS remake of that game compared to the original. You see a video talking about Ocarina of Time, it's going to talk about the N64 original, sometimes even the N64 OG version 1 version of the game, which includes content such as the chanting in the Fire Temple theme, the red blood, the skippable text, and stuff like that. The original Gerudo symbol on the mirror shield and the flag, stuff like that. And let's talk about the 3DS version, even though it's like, should we talk about the 3DS version? Because it's an enhanced version of the game, has better graphics, stuff like that. But because it's like a major game, people generally disregard a re-release. I'm going to talk about the original. A good example is Super Mario 64, a very major game because of 3D platforming. But how many people are talking about the DS version? They're talking about it as more of a footnote thing, but it's also because the DS version is also so different with how much new stuff it introduces, but all without fixing the problems of the original game. So a lot of people, some people go back and forth, on top of the fact that it goes from a system analog stick, a 64 controller, to a DS with a 4-pronged D-pad. So, because I'm like awkward to play a 3D platformer in that whole entire sense. So people talk about it less, even though it's like, shouldn't this be the one people talk about if the newer version is always better? Shouldn't this be the one people are talking about? But for a lot of people, no, we're talking about Super Mario 64 being a pioneer in 3D platforming. They talk about the N64 original and nothing else. Another case of the later version may not necessarily be the best version is Persona 3 with its multiple versions. Do you want the original Persona 3? Do you want the FES version with updates to the journey and includes the answer? Do you want Persona 3 Portable with its female protagonist and the void quest and one entire thing? Or do you want Persona 3 Reload with its remake of the OG storyline, the DLC for the answer, but it also lacks like the female protagonist, it also lacks the void quest, and it comes up to preference which version you want? Or do you want Persona 3 Portable Remaster, which is a version you can get on platforms like PSN, Xbox Live, Switch eShop, and Steam, but that remaster of Persona 3 Portable is not well liked because it includes issues not found in the original version, like muffled audio, the backgrounds look messier, the UI looks messier, there are some bugs like Ken can just turn green. So it's stuff like that where you would think, with the better technology, the remaster should have made Portable really shine. Instead, it just creates new problems, which is a whole entire thing on top of like Persona 3 Reload. People expected it to include all the content, all the versions, because that's what they expected. And it doesn't do that. Some think it fails its purpose. But its purpose is to be a new version of P3 that adds new content, stuff like that, to which it does succeed. But if you were expecting like some all-in-one version, then no, I can't remember many games that actually are an all-in-one version with a remake. Like, does Final Fantasy VII Remake fail because of the fact that the Yuffie story is DLC? Does that mean it fails as a remake? No! It follows a remake because it's not a remake, it's a sequel. But that's besides the point. It's the kind of expectation people have for a remake where it has multiple content, it needs to come with all that content, and so people don't have that, or they think that version isn't as good as a previous version. But people's logic is the later release should be the best one. Should be the one people focus on. Another example is the Mega Man Battle Network Legacy Collection, where in that collection, it includes all the mainline Mega Man Battle Network games, but it doesn't include spin-off titles like Battle Chip Challenge, Mega Man 4.5, stuff like that. But it also doesn't include alternate versions of games that include Mega Man Battle Network 5, Double Team DS. Instead, you get to pick one of the two GBA versions, but you can't have the DS version that had content from both games. I also love the fact that when it comes to stuff like Battle Network 3, 4, 5, and 6, which have multiple versions, one version generally is more updated than the other, so while you are picking based on preference like Team Colonel and Team Proto Man, Team Proto Man is the less updated version of the game, and so Team Colonel is the one that has more quality of life stuff added to it. As an example, those that quantum were dynamic, but this collection doesn't have that. People I've seen know that doesn't have all the content, but a lot of people, they're like, whatever, it has the content they like Mega Man Battle Network, so it's fine. Even though for many people, a later release should have all of the stuff in it, like how Mega Man X Legacy Collection doesn't include Maverick Hunter X, the PSP version, but it includes Day of Sigma for some reason, which is non-canon to the original Mega Man X timeline because it has stuff that does not happen. It was supposed to be part of a whole entire alternate continuity for the X series, but they included that, but not the game in question it was for, or the Game Boy games like Mega Man X-Treme 1 and 2 and stuff like that. So people kind of expected more from a collection, even if what you're getting is a lot. Another example, Tokyo Mirage Sessions Encore on Nintendo Switch. A re-released Tokyo Mirage Sessions that includes more content in the original, but it also excludes content from the original Japanese release. There are some DLC that just never got localized, on top of the fact that it's based on the Western version, which had its own alterations made to the game. So that means there's stuff that's just completely lost from the game. And there are people who were upset about that, especially Japan, since when it was first announced, they didn't disclose initially that it was based on the Western version of the game, so they had to issue refunds for potentially misleading the audience and stuff like that. So it's also kind of a factor where, like, not all the stuff is there, but I see a lot of people like Tokyo Mirage Sessions Encore. All, like, 13,000 of us, because I swear there's not a lot of people that play Tokyo Mirage Sessions or give it a chance. But it's one of those things where not all the content is in the re-release. On top of the fact that also Tokyo Mirage Sessions Encore didn't fix certain issues for the fact that the Pierce ability in Tokyo Mirage Sessions, which allows you to go through physical resistances, will also create bad sessions because it'll allow Itsuki to just create a session from an attack, but it'll choose an attack that an enemy may repel or null or whatever, and so it was better off not to use it and just not bother being able to pierce resistances, but that issue was still in Encore. That's something that didn't get fixed. It's one of those things where you would think a later version would fix all the issues. So we're going to one entire idea people have of when they feel like the later release of a game is an definitive version. Like, I got split bars because someone said, oh, Persona 4 Gold and Persona 5 Royal make the originals obsolete. No, they don't. One, that's not how art works, and two, for all the reasons people can enjoy Golden and Royal more than the original counterparts, I can say why I enjoy the original Persona 4 and Persona 5 more than the re-release counterparts. Just like how people can say why they prefer Persona 3 Portable OG to the remaster, or they can enjoy Portable to Reload, or FES to Reload, and stuff like that. It's all about preferences. There's no one-size-fits-all when it comes to later releases, because not everything is going to be some big, perfect entire release of a game. There will be issues some way, shape, or form. Look at also an example, Sky Program, which the original version, you had DLC. In the re-release, the DLC is included except for one, the character of Knives, who actually need an Ubisoft account in order to get. Yes, you're not paying extra, but the fact you have to make an extra account outside of the game just to get content that should be there, even for the physical release, is BS. just stuff like that. Or I see a video talk about Twilight Princess or HD, why they prefer the original Twilight Princess, the HD version, especially the HD version added in chess for Miiverse stamps. Because Miiverse is no longer a thing, those stamps are effectively worthless as a result, and so there's way more chess in the game that could have had something else in it, but now make way for these Miiverse stamps that don't add anything to the game now. Or the fact that it shows imperfections that originally were hidden. Like some cutscenes will just hang or stall, or you can see higher render distance and see that its characters just freeze in place, because originally probably would have been fog there in order to hide that fact. So there's that much aspect comes to that. So later release of a game isn't always the better version, even despite the fact that we have better technology. We have developers who understand more how to make games, but some developers who are experts when it comes to re-releasing and remaking games. Like, one size fits all does not fit all, and sometimes things slip through the cracks, sometimes things don't get fixed, or sometimes they're just adding more content without actually making things better, or the new content could just be other crap, but now it's like, hey, you gotta do it. I think for Assassin's Creed 2, this is what I heard. My sister told me that Assassin's Creed 2 had DLC that was kind of but that re-release Assassin's Creed 2 in the DLC part of the story mode, so you have to do it, and it just made the experience worse as a result for her, because now it's something you have to do. It's kind of one of those things where sometimes new content you add in is inherently better. Just because it's new content doesn't mean you don't necessarily like it. Or I got told recently by a streamer who thought that my issues with some Remake and Rebirth where there's too much filler content, that I would enjoy it if FF5 had filler content, and it's like, no, I don't like the Final Fantasy Legend of Crystals, a OVA series that's part of Final Fantasy V, but I don't care for that thing. So many people don't care about the other stuff about Remake and Rebirth. I see major FF7 fans don't like stuff and Remake and Rebirth. Those aren't definitive versions, but it's just they're different versions of the game entirely. You know? But now I'm just full on rambling with no cohesion, so that's what I want to get across. Newer version of the game isn't always better. Sometimes there's things people prefer the original, or sometimes it does just screw something up when they re-release a game. When they re-release a game, remaster it, or remaking it. Okay? So, new isn't always better.